Good evening everyone, and welcome to another Queensland Severe Weather Chasers Network cyclone video update tonight, the 14th of December 2018. My name is Nathan Donnelly, and tonight we're continuing our coverage of severe tropical cyclone Owen. Now we can see that at 7 p.m. this evening, Cyclone Owen was a Category 3 system just off the coastline here of the western coast of the Cape York Peninsula, here just around in between Kawama and Pompure, and it was heading in this slightly southeasterly type direction. Now, it's expected to make landfall overnight, and at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, expected to have hit the coastline just south of Kawama, and has de-intensified into a Category 2 system. And as it rapidly then makes its way to the southeast, it's expected to be a low pressure system by 7 p.m. tomorrow evening, and then by 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, expected to be a low pressure system just southwest there of Innisfail, and then it's expected to pop off the coastline at 7 p.m. Sunday night, and at 7 a.m. on Monday expected to be there just off the coastline of Townsville. Now, there has been some forecasts saying that if this system does get off the coastline again, it has the potential of reforming into a cyclone. It's not definite that it will do so, but it does have the potential to do that, and we'll have a look at why that might be a little bit later on in this update. So let's look now at the rainfall associated with this system, and tomorrow we can see that the main bulk of the rainfall is going to be around in this Kawama region, expecting 50 to 100 mils of rain, with 150 to 200 just off the coastline, but really anywhere from about Normington right up to the tip there, even Thursday Island, getting some moisture from this system. If we now look into Sunday, and we can see that the rainfall has now moved to the eastern coastline of Queensland. The heaviest falls now falling between Tully and Townsville, expecting between 50 to 100 mils, or maybe 100 to 150, depending on whereabouts on the coastline you are. But basically anywhere from Cooktown right down the coastline, expecting some rainfall from the system on Sunday. If we look now onto Monday, and we can see that if we just scroll up a little bit, the rainfall has now kind of gone further down the coastline a little bit, not as much as what has been predicted in the past, but still we're expecting around 25 to 50 mils of rain here between Bowen and Mackay, or just south of Mackay, and also between Rockhampton down to just north there of Gympie, there on the coastline. But as you can see, anywhere from around about Ayr down to Brisbane, or even further south than Brisbane, expecting some rainfall from this system. Okay, so let's get into the modelling for the system, and firstly we're having a look here at the European model, and the European saying that this system at we'll just get the computer here to load us, 10 p.m. this evening, the system just off the coastline here of the western coastline of the Cape York Peninsula. Then into Saturday morning, and the system hitting the coast at about 5 a.m. in the morning, and hitting just south there of Pompure. But as we saw in the Bureau's track, that is actually near Kawama. So that's where the system is expected to hit, between those two towns. If we look now through into Saturday afternoon and or Saturday evening, 7 p.m, we can see that there is something like a low pressure system here in the middle of the Cape York Peninsula. There is still some strong winds being drawn in here on its eastern or northeastern side. But it is over land, and while ever it is over land, it's going to lose intensity as it goes through to Sunday morning. And we can see that at 7 a.m. Sunday morning, the system is sitting right there over Cairns, and we can see that we've got these strong winds here on its eastern side. And with that strong winds, because they are coming in off the Coral Sea, are expected to have quite a lot of moisture with them. If we have a look at the rainfall for Cairns at this time of the day, and we can see that we're getting around 55.2 mils of rain in a 3-hour time frame. So that's quite extensive rainfall there for the Cairns region. Then looking back as we continue into Sunday afternoon, and the system once again pops off the coastline. Now this is where it's quite interesting, and we are really going to have to watch what this system does as it heads back out to sea off the coastline between Cairns and Townsville. We can see there that there is still quite a strong circulation, but not quite a cyclone yet, because these winds are not wrapping themselves around the whole system at the moment. They're only here on its eastern side. So at this stage, still a very deep low pressure system, but the winds on this eastern side, 25 knot winds or 26 knot winds associated on the eastern side of this system on the Sunday afternoon. Let's look to see what happens on the Monday, and we can see that at 8 a.m. on the Monday the 17th, the system here between Townsville and Mackay, probably sitting off the coastline of Bowen around the Whitsundays area, and we can see that these winds now have started to wrap themselves around the system. The only thing that would stop it being called a tropical cyclone at this stage would be the fact that the eye has become very elongated at this stage. So that could be the only thing that would be stopping from this system being renamed into Tropical Cyclone Owen once again, all because that eye is very elongated at the moment. It's certainly got the winds coming around the system. Up here we've got 27 knot, 30 knot winds, and the moisture from the system probably hitting there just north of Mackay, but we're getting in the range of 35.9 mils. Closer to the centre, we're getting 40.2 mils offshore at this time. Let's look now and see what happens with the system into Monday afternoon. And we can see that the system kind of just, it meanders around a little bit. And by 11 p.m. it's still sitting off the coastline or off the northeastern coastline of Mackay still. And we can see that the winds have dropped a little bit. We're now getting, what is it, about 23 knots instead of that 27 knots that we were getting before. So something happening there that is not allowing the system to intensify at this stage. The rainfall, we can see, is concentrated just north there of Mackay. They're getting about 31 mils of rain at this time. We can also see a bit of a feeder band coming in here offshore there near in between Rockhampton and Bundaberg. We've got that little bit of a feeder band coming in there as well. So because this system, it doesn't really know what it's doing, let's continue looking into Tuesday morning. And the system is just sitting there, not really going a whole lot, except for about midday on Tuesday. The system starts to head back towards the coastline. Whether it's a tropical cyclone at this stage or not, we do not know. But we are getting winds on its eastern side of 24 knots. Up to 30 knots wind, and the moisture associated with this system, most of it being offshore here to its northeastern side, 28.7 mils up to 66.9 millimeters there, closer to the center of circulation of this system. And we'll now just look into Tuesday evening. And we can see that by 11 p.m. Tuesday evening, this system has once again hit the coastline there between Mackay and Townsville, probably around that Bowen area. And once it does that, it has pretty much transpired back into a low pressure system. So that's the European model's take on this system. Okay, so now let's have a look at the GFS's take on the system. And we can see that at 9 p.m. this evening, the system is there just off the coast, the western coastline of Cape York Peninsula, near the Pompure township. We go through into Saturday morning at 4 a.m. The system is pretty much crossing the coast at this stage, just south of Pompure, probably in between Pompure and Kawama. And going into Saturday afternoon, we see that the system at, we'll go a little bit further on, you can see at 5 p.m. the system in the middle there of Cape York Peninsula losing a lot of its intensity at this stage. Then looking into Sunday morning, the system takes a bit of a southeasterly sort of track, and at 1 a.m. sitting there just west of Cairns. We do have these strong winds coming in on its eastern side onto Cairns, and because the winds are coming in off the Coral Sea, we can expect to see quite a lot of rainfall, as we said with the European model. Then we look into Sunday afternoon, and we can see the system's just hugging that coastline, but then at 2 p.m. on Sunday, it gets off the coastline there around the Innisfail area. And as it does so, as we did say with the European, this is its opportunity to once again reform into a tropical cyclone if it spends enough time out over the waters and gets itself going. So if we look now through to Monday morning, and we can see the system continues this easterly drift just to the northeast now of Townsville, and the winds are starting to wrap themselves around this system again, but at this stage I would say they aren't wrapping themselves too tightly around the center of the system. They're sort of out from the eye, so at this stage would still say that this system is a tropical low. Then on Monday afternoon, this system just slowly moves itself down towards the southeast once again, going down the coastline. Seems to have lost a lot of its intensity at this stage. These winds not really strong at all. I mean, in this section here, we've only got 19 knot winds up to 22 knot winds, so not very strong winds at all. Then into Tuesday, and on Tuesday the system starts to change its direction. It's now coming west, so it stopped going southeast. It's now coming west back towards the Queensland coastline. And if it does that, then its chances of reforming into a tropical cyclone once again are very, very limited. But there we can see it's off the coastline of Townsville. Then Tuesday afternoon, the system doesn't seem to really want to do a whole lot according to the GFS, just meander around there off the coastline of Townsville. And as it does so, though, it is losing a lot of its intensity. So I would say that the life cycle of this system is pretty short according to the GFS model. I just want to now have a look at the sea surface temperatures for this system and to try and figure out what it might do when it gets back off the coastline, if that's what it does decide to do after it's crossed the Cape York Peninsula. At the moment, we can see the system's in these nice warm temperatures, 30-degree sea surface temperatures. Then when it pops off the coastline in Cairns, at the moment the temperatures are around this 30 or high 20-degree mark, which cyclones need anything that's above or near the 30-degree mark in order for them to start to re-intensify. So at this stage, the sea surface temperatures are quite good for this system. Now this is today, what the sea surface temperatures are like today. I would not expect a whole lot to change between now and when the system does come back off the coastline, if indeed that is what it does. Looking at the humidity associated with this system at the moment, and it's this blue colouring that cyclones absolutely love. They love the deep blue colours, which is showing high humidity levels. So at this stage, it's showing around 90% humidity in this system, and that's exactly what cyclones need to continue to intensify. If we look further ahead now and we follow this system, and this is the European modelling, I'll just say, and we can see that even when the system does lose a lot of its intensity, it's still dragging a lot of humidity with it. It's dragging it in here from the tropics and dragging it in here from the Coral Sea. So there's no problem with the humidity with this system. Then if we look through to on the Sunday, when the cyclone or when the system is expected to have popped off the coastline there near Townsville, we can see that along with it popping off the coastline, it's also dragging a lot of the humidity with it as well. We're getting 90, even 100% humidity with this system. So humidity is not a problem. We do see some drier air here to its western, but it's nowhere near the system and it's not going to affect it whatsoever. We just have a look now at what Cyclone Owen looks like from the visible imagery from the NOAA website, and we can see that here is the swirling mass that is Tropical Cyclone Owen barreling towards the western coastline of the Cape York Peninsula. And so finally, folks, we're going to have a look at what the winds look like with this system at the moment. And here we can see very well defined eye of the system right there in the middle of the Gulf of Carpentaria, and the winds really coming in strong around the system. We've got a bit of orange there showing some very, very strong and destructive winds. So if you're on Mornington Island, it'd be starting to get quite windy there, and also on the coastline there of the Cape York Peninsula, getting quite windy as well, as these winds wrap themselves around the system. So folks, that's all we do have time for tonight. So thanks for listening. If you'd like to donate to the work that we do here for you at Queensland Severe Weather Chasers Network, then please do think about donating to us through our PayPal tab on the page. So thanks for listening, and we will talk again tomorrow evening when we give you another update of Tropical Cyclone Owen.